Hey, what's up, nerds? This is Cam. I'm going to create one more short video where I add some behaviors into this weapon system here. I'm just going to do different fire modes so you can see how you could change up the way your gun acts just with these simple mixins we've created here. So I cleaned up, this is the same scene I have from the last project, except I just organized stuff into folders because I was getting a little sloppy at the end of the last video there. And I created a script here called input base. It's just a regular mono behavior right now, but we're gonna make it a mixin here. And our input base is just going to have a key code, and we'll call it our input, and it's gonna have a mixin base as well, and we'll call this our action mixin. And then what we're gonna do with this is basically listen for the key code that we assign to our input base, and then call the action of our action mixin. And we'll use that to fire our weapon instead of having it done hard-coded in the player controller. And the reason I'm making it a input base class here is because we want to listen for different kinds of input. And we can do that by creating different input mixins. So here we're gonna do a get key input. And we'll make a get key down input. So these will act differently if you want to listen just for that trigger pull and fire your weapon, or while the trigger is being held down, fire your weapon repeatedly. So this is our get key input. So we're just gonna put in update here. Oh, and don't forget to inherit from input base. And then in update, we're just going to listen if input get key input key. What's wrong with input key? Oh, we just called it input. I'm going to change that to input key. Action mixin. Oh yeah, I want to change mixin base. I just want to add a function to it. All over this project, I've been saying if action mixin dot check, then call the action mixin action. I'm just gonna add a function here. That's gonna be public void. Let's call it like check and action. And if we call that, it will say if check action. And that'll essentially do the same thing that we've been doing, but then saves us a line of code over here. And that will only call the action mixin when it can, which should work fine. And the other one we want to do is our get key down input. What's wrong with input? Oh yeah, don't forget to inherit. Perfect. So now we can actually, before we forget, we can pop into our player controller here, and we can get rid of this, all our logic for firing the weapon. And then our player controller, all it does now is navigation. And then we can pop onto our rifle here, and right on the parent object, I'm gonna put these, and we can do a get key input, and whoa, we can. Oh, what's going on here? So we can use our get key input, and we'll assign it to the mouse here. Mouse 0 is going to be fine. And then for our action mixin, we'll grab our call mixin actions from our fire logic, which will call this function here, which will call all our checks and all our actions, and then it'll fire the gun just like we had going before, which is perfect. And then if we want to do on our rifle here, we can do a get key down input and do the same thing here with our mouse 1, and we can put the same mixin on there, the same call mixin action. But if I click and hold my my right mouse button, it's only going to fire once because it's listening for get key down instead of get key. So that's good for like a semi-automatic weapon or of sorts. But now what we can do is we can create different call mixin actions and have different fire logic associated with each one. So I mean, an easy way to do this is just to copy the one we already have, and then we can paste it here as a new one and drag it to the top here. So now we have two different call mixin actions, and then I can add new mixins. You could split this up on different like fire logic game objects as well if you want to make it a little more organized. But an easy one to do here, like we can put in our projectile, our create projectile mixin here, and then drag this to our second mixin, our second call mixin action, and we'll replace our fire raycast here under action mixins with our create projectile mixin. And then that bullet prefab we made earlier, let's slow it down a little, we can drag that onto our projectile prefab here, and our fire position from our mesh here. And now when I play, oh well, I have to reassign that actually. So if we pop onto our rifle, we can reassign this get key down input. And an easy way to do that, because they're on the same game object, whichever one is on top of the list here that's of that type is going to get referenced in if you drag it from the inspector. So I can drag my create projectile one up to the top of the inspector here, and then if I drag my fire logic into this spot, it'll reference the mixin that's at the very top of the inspector, if that makes sense. So now fire position of create projectile. I swore I did that. Create projectile. Oh, I put it in projectile prefab. That's no good. So re-reference our prefab and then put our fire position in the right spot, and we're click and play. But you can see it. You can see it shooting the projectile here every time I click my mouse. But if I click my other one, my left mouse, it doesn't. Oh yeah, it was. Oh, it's overheated. God damn it. If I wait a second here, my left mouse fires a raycast, and my right mouse is firing the projectile there, which is nice. So, but I was click and play, so now I have to re-reference this stuff again. Fire position here, and I might as well I'm gonna up my overheat there. Might as well make it 50 or something so that I can actually test this without overheating all the time. And there you go. So it's firing a raycast, and then it's firing a projectile on my click down. Perfect. So we could do something with our second logic here. We could make like a burst fire. So we could create a new mixin, and we'll call this repeat mixin. So it'll be our repeat mixin, and all it will do, we'll call mixins multiple times, which can be useful for like a wide variety of reasons, but we can use it to easily create a burst fire by telling something to run like 3 times. Repeat mixin. There we go. So it's going to be a mixin base, and it's going to have our action, and we're going to have to give it a repeat count and a repeat time. And a bool for if it's repeating. Perfect. And then when we call our action, we're going to say is repeating equals true. We're going to set that repeat time to 0. And then we're going to give this an update here. And if we are repeating, we're going to increment our repeat time. And then check our timer. So if repeat time is greater than repeat timer, I guess we're going to need another int for like times repeated. And we can make times repeated 0 here. So then we're saying start counting how many times we've repeated and start our time from 0. And then when we hit our time limit, we'll up our times repeated. Plus, and then we can check if our times repeated is less than our repeat count, so how many times we want to repeat. I guess we can put that in an if statement. And well, we're gonna need an action mixin, so let's make a mixin base action mixin, and mixin base is going to be public, and then we have something to call. So I guess as soon as we probably want to call it right away, and we can call check and action because it was a genius idea to make that function here, and then so we call it once right away. So I guess we can actually pop times repeated to be 1. And this we actually want to be greater than, and then we can call mixin action, check mixin actions every time this is going. Actually no, I guess we want this to be greater than. So we can say if it is greater than, we'll say is repeating equals false because we're done our count, and otherwise we want to set our time back to 0. Repeat time equals 0. So then it will continue incrementing. This will run again. This will get incremented, and if that is repeating equals false, that should work fine. So then all we need is something to call repeat mixin here. So we can pop onto our fire logic. And this is getting a little disorganized because there's a lot of mixins going on here. In the next video, I'm going to try to create a custom inspector that's going to make this look really nice and kind of organize your mixins a lot better. And that'll be a really nice step towards making this system like look and feel a lot nicer. But for now, we'll put repeat mixin here, and I'm going to drag this up because it's going to be working together with this call mixin action here. So we can say on our repeat mixin, we want it to call our call mixin action. We want it to repeat 3 times, we'll say, and we want it to repeat every, how long does a shot take? 0.2? Okay, so we'll do 0.2 because then it'll match up with our animation, but you could have different animations and then it would, you could put it to whatever you want. So I'll shoot 3 times, 0.2 seconds apart, and that should be fine. And then, so this is another thing that's annoying, but we're gonna fix this with the custom inspector. Is I want to take check cooldown out of this call mixin action here, but the only way to do that is to like grab my check overheat here because I don't want to get rid of that. So I can grab that and put this here over check cooldown and then change the size to 2, and then that gets rid of the second check overheat, and that works, but it's annoying. So with the custom inspector, we're going to be doing reorderable lists. It'll be way easier to add and delete things. It's going to be a lot nicer if you bear with me a little bit. For now, we'll just work with this mess of an inspector we got going on here. Oh, I did it to the wrong one, eh? That's fine. Our raycast will now be a burst fire raycast. That's fine. So we got rid of the cooldown because we want it to fire every 0.2 seconds, but we want our repeat mix in here to have a cooldown. So the way to do that is actually to add another call mix in action here. So we'll call our call mix in action here. And our call mix in action is going to call repeat mixin, but our call mix in action is going to have a cooldown. And we can make our cooldown like 2 seconds or whatever. Say this burst fire is really powerful, you don't want to be able to shoot it that often. So I'm going to move this up just so you can see what's going on here. Oh no, god damn it. I dragged it onto my checks there, or my actions. Alright, here we go. So we're going to call this call mix in actions, this first one here. That call mix in action is going to check the cooldown so that it can only run, it will only call its action mixins every 2 seconds. And then its action mixin is going to be that repeat mixin, which will tell our secondary call mixin actions 3 times. So that'll fire 3 shots whenever that repeat mixin can run, which is every 2 seconds. Hopefully this is going to work. So let me double check. Yeah, it all looks good. So, so I do have to change what my input's running. So this call mix in action here, I want to put for one of my inputs to call, and it's the top mixin of this inspector. So if I pop over here and drag fire logic on, it's going to work for me. And I want to do my get key down for my burst fire, so that works. And my get key down, oh yeah, look at that, fires 3 shots. So I click fire, and it fires a quick burst, 3 shots, just like a BR in Halo. And that worked beautifully, and it works with all my other mixins. And then I have 2 fire types. So there's my, whoa, my rapid fire is shooting really quick. I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, I do know why it's doing that. It's because my other fire is still referencing the call mix in actions that I'm using for my burst fire, which I took the cooldown off of. What I want to do here, I can show you the other way to grab something out of inspector. You can create 2 inspectors, so I can add another inspector here, and then I have 2 inspectors, and then I can lock this one here just by right clicking on inspector and clicking lock. And then when I go back to my rifle, this inspector stays on my fire logics, and I can find the mixin that I want to reference. So I want my projectile call mixin actions, which is this guy here. So I'll grab this and reference him over. But like I was saying earlier, I could always just drag that mixin to the top and do it in my hierarchy window here. But for now, look at that. So my left mouse click fires a projectile every 20 milliseconds or something. And then my right mouse click fires this quick burst. I mean, it's the same speed, but you can change all that up with like different animations and stuff and make it look really nice. Or 2 completely different weapons. One's a burst fire, one that's fully automatic. All just using these same pieces. So it's super modular, but kind of messy. But like I said, we're gonna clean it up. I'm gonna start on that custom inspector tomorrow, and we'll make this look really pretty. I promise. So I hope you guys enjoyed my little mixin sessions here. If you have any behaviors that you want me to do, or you're curious about how you could do with this kind of design philosophy, feel free to shoot me a message or a comment, and I will absolutely rig them up for you, no problems. That's all for today, though. Thanks for watching.